How's it going, folks? What I've got alongside me here is an old traditional Irish dresser. As you can see, this particular one has seen better days. There's a few planks missing here and there, and there's quite a lot of rot in other places and a few woodworms lurking about. But over the course of the next few days, I'm going to be stripping this thing down, removing all the paint, seeing what the damage is, and going about restoring this thing so that it can go back into the kitchen where it spent the last 100 years, all the way up in County Cavan. So I had this drop down to the workshop there last week, and I've just now had the time to start digging into it. So join me as we take this vernacular beauty and bring it back to its former glory.
I knew just by the look and feel of the thing that there was a lot of rot and woodworm hiding underneath all that paint, so the first order of business was to disassemble the entire thing. Nail by nail, screw by screw, plank by plank. After setting aside the doors and the drawers, I began removing the backboards. They were simply tongue and groove boards that were nailed into position, so a few taps off the rawhide mallet and they came away nicely. Removing the nails was a more challenging endeavour. A lot of them had rusted and become weak over time, so when I went to go and remove them, they'd snap, leaving the end of the nail stuck inside the wood. But I found using a vice grips in companion with a paint scraper to avoid denting when you go to lever the nail out was a fairly effective way to remove most of the nails. I had to be a little bit more delicate when removing the mouldings, so I used a chisel to get in under there and pop them off. The goal here was to preserve as much of the original timber as possible. Slowly but surely the dresser came apart one piece at a time until I was left with a neatly arranged pile of wood on my workbench. They say the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time, and now that I had this dresser broken down into its individual components, that was my game plan. I could now mull over each individual piece to see what work needed to be done to bring this dresser back to life. Now that we had it deconstructed, the next job was to scrape every single square inch of paint off this thing. In order to achieve this, I used a cabinet scraper, a whittling knife and a 2-inch chisel, all regularly sharpened to keep their edges keen and ready for scraping. A lot of people said to me, why didn't you just use some sort of chemical paint stripper? And the truth, I'm man enough to admit it, is that I was scared, okay? So what, I apply a thick layer of this chemical concoction onto the paint, come back an hour later, and it's transformed it into a soupy mess? That's the sort of sorcery we should be leaving up to the fairies, and certainly not inviting into the workshop. And to be totally honest, I didn't mind the scraping. It's one of those kind of monotonous, repetitive jobs that if you do for long enough, your brain and body just kind of do it on autopilot, so you can have a nice old think for yourself, or maybe catch up on an audio book or a podcast if you're feeling fancy. One of the primary concerns you'll have when scraping away old paint is of course whether or not it is in fact lead paint. The very last thing I'd want to be doing is impairing this lovely noggin of mine with toxic dust. Lucky for me, I could rest assured, having spoken to a client who told me that her mother fully stripped and repainted this dresser back in the 90s, long after lead paint was illegalised in Ireland. I'm fairly sure these swirly little pigtail marks were evidence of that job. These get left behind sometimes in the trail of an orbital sander. Scraping paint off the larger, wider boards was fairly straightforward. Things got a little bit more tedious when it came to getting into the nooks and crannies of those mouldings, so I did those last, and after a few more hours of scraping little bits of paint out with the tip of my knife, I had every single piece of wood stripped down to bare wood grain once more. This gave me a much clearer image of what condition the wood was in. Some pieces were totally fine, others had a few woodworm holes that needed to be filled, and some needed to be replaced altogether. The first piece, or pieces I should say, that had to be replaced were the sledge feet. These things had rotted away and turned to dust, and that's kind of expected with these old dressers. The old houses that these dressers were built to inhabit would have been fairly damp places, and moisture was liable to building up between the floor and the bottom of these dressers, causing them to rot. But the old carpenters of course had a clever solution. They designed these feet as a sacrificial part that would be allowed to rot and then replaced once it got bad enough, therefore protecting the rest of the dresser. Now, although this dresser is going back into the original cottage that it's inhabited its entire life, the house itself has recently undergone modern renovations and is no longer the damp place it once was. This, coupled with the fact that I'm making these new feet out of oak, a much more durable timber than the pine I'm replacing, means that these feet should last magnitudes longer than any former pair. In this case, the previous pair of feet had gone well beyond their functional life, and this is probably why the bottom of this dresser was also very badly rotten. Ideally, I wouldn't like to be replacing any planks on this dresser, but when you can stick a chisel straight through a 1-inch plank of wood, I don't really have any other option. I chose to replace the bottom with this super wide piece of Douglas fir that had been salvaged from an old beam. Using recycled materials like this is one of my favourite things about the woodworking I do. I like to imagine how this particular piece I'm using spent 100 years as a tree before spending 100 years as a roof, and now hopefully another 100 years as a dresser. So up until this point, I've essentially just been building a brand new dresser from scratch in the image of the old one. So for the next leg of the project, I said I'd get something original working again. The drawers were actually in fairly good condition. There was no issues with woodworm or rot or anything like that, but there was significant wear on the bottom of the drawers due to years of friction from opening and closing. So in order to remedy that issue, both drawers had to be broken down to their individual planks, which of course also made it that little bit easier to do even more painstaking paint scraping. So like I mentioned earlier, the sides at the bottom had worn away from years and years of opening and closing. As you can see here, this piece is just about hanging on, so I yanked it away and used my hand plane to make a nice flat surface in its place. Now I could replace what was missing by gluing on this fresh new piece of pine. This piece hasn't had years to take on a patina, so it does stick out like a sore thumb compared to the original piece, but what harm, it'll quite literally be tucked away in a drawer where nobody will see. Now that we had some fresh material to work with, I reinstated this tail here that's part of our half-blind dovetail that connects the side of the drawers to the front. Once I made sure that everything fit together again, I got to work cutting the groove that held the bottom of the drawer in place. I used my Stanley No. 50 combination plane to achieve that cut, and once I had it made, I assembled the drawer back together, for good this time. One of the drawers had its dovetails nailed into position and the other didn't, so when putting the two of them back together, I decided to nail both of them in place, just to ensure longevity. Both drawers came with two lovely wooden knobs that were threaded to screw tightly, locking them into place. Once those were installed, we had our drawers finished and ready for final installation. But that was a long way off yet, and one of the most tedious jobs of all was still ahead of us: the cabinet doors. Unlike the drawers, these had quite a significant bit of rot and woodworm throughout, especially on the finicky bits like the mouldings you see on the panels. The first thing I did here was knock out the oak trennels that were holding everything together. That allowed us to begin disassembling the frame by tapping the mortises out of the tenons. Once we had everything broken apart, we could begin, you guessed it, paint scraping. Where are the good people when you need them, huh? I didn't even bother filming it this time. You know what paint scraping looks like at this point. I suppose this is a good chance to talk about frame and panel door construction. Doors, like this one, and in general, are quite large and wide objects. It'd be fairly difficult to find a single piece of timber large enough to build a door out of, and even if you could, you'd be wasting your time because it'd be so unstable due to its size. So the clever old boys, of course, came up with a solution. They'd use smaller pieces of wood, first to build a frame, which are the thicker pieces you see around the edge here, and then they'd place a thin piece of wood in between the frame, and that would be known as the panel. And there you have your frame and panel door construction. The panel is usually slotted into a frame, which is then held together through a series of complicated mortise and tenon joints. In the absence of glue, the tenons are locked into place using trennels, which derive their name from the Old English words for tree and nail. So I whittled those out of little bits of oak before tapping them into their holes, securing everything together. Not wanting to contend with the decorative mouldings that break the line between the frame and the panel, I parked the doors for the time being and moved on to the next job. The sides of the dresser that had been in close proximity to the feet and bottom had also suffered severely from rot and woodworm. Now, like I mentioned before, my goal here was to keep as much of the original timber as possible. It'd be a right shame to throw out this entire length of wood when it's only the end that's gone bad. There's no point in throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so my plan here was to cut off the pieces that had gone rotten and graft on a replacement piece of timber. When doing this sort of work, the famous thought experiment, the ship of Theseus, springs to mind. It's a question of identity, asking if a ship, having had every single one of its individual parts replaced over the course of its life, is still the original ship. Furthermore, if you were to take all of these replaced parts and rebuild them into another ship, would this be the original ship, or would it be the one that we made out of the replacement parts? I mean, it's philosophy, so there's no right or wrong answer, but in my subjective view of things, I think it's of utmost importance to maintain as much of the original pieces as you possibly can, in order to maintain the dresser's authenticity and originality. In regards to this dresser, most of the pieces I replaced were more structural and less cosmetic, so I feel comfortable saying that this dresser will still be the original dresser by the time I'm done with it. I mean, your granny would still be your granny, even if she got 2 new hips, wouldn't she? I mean, I'm sure she'd still have all of her age and character, no doubt. Now these sides, like the rest of the dresser, were made out of pine, and I didn't have any spare pine wide enough lying around, so instead I used the same Douglas fir we used to make the bottom. Now obviously the red colour of the Douglas fir was going to stand out amongst the whiteness of the pine, but I was told that once they got this dresser back, they were going to be giving it a nice new coat of paint, so I needn't worry about any mix-matched timber. After a hard day's grafting, I decided to glue the side that holds the worktop up and the side that holds the shelves up together, leave them set for 24 hours and move on to the next thing. This piece of wood that belongs on the front facing part of the dresser just beneath the cabinet doors was so badly gone that it would have been a prime candidate for replacement. But seeing as it was such a prominent part of the dresser, I said I'd try everything I could to try and save it. First I used a hardener to try and stabilise the timber, then I used some wood filler to help deal with the rough surface the woodworms had left behind. As bad as this damage looks, from carefully examining every single piece of wood in this dresser, I'd be safe enough in saying that this woodworm infestation is no longer active and was probably dealt with during the restoration it underwent back in the 90s. Now I'll agree right now it doesn't exactly look fantastic, but you must remember that filler and paint make me the joiner I ain't, and this thing is still awaiting its coat of paint. Hopefully, once it's got that, it'll still maintain that kind of rough, aged look that we would have found it hard to replicate had we used a brand new piece of timber. After I gave the filler some time to set, I hammered all the tenons back into their mortises, used some trenels to lock them all together, and then, at long-leggedy last, it was the moment we've all been waiting for. The assembly.
Alrighty then, after what's felt like an eternity of removing paint and filling in woodworm tunnels, we're finally at the stage where we can start putting this dresser back together again. I'm here again in my parents' garage where I started off my woodworking journey all those years ago, simply because it was such a struggle to get this dresser into the workshop to begin with. It banged off the wall and got a few dents and scratches, which was fine because I could fix them in the workshop. But once I have everything put together, I want to make it as easy as possible for the client to come down and collect it, load it into the van and take it away. So we've got a big roller door here that we can easily remove the dresser from the building out of. So yeah, we're gonna get to work on that here today.
So I started putting this dresser together the same way you would if you were doing a jigsaw. I'll start off by doing everything around the edges first, and then I'll fill in everything in between as I go along. I would have liked to have been able to use the original cut nails to put everything back together, but seeing as most of those had failed, I was using some modern wire nails in their place. Using nails at all would be considered a bit of a no-no when making fine furniture, but you must remember we're dealing with vernacular furniture here, which is quite possibly the furthest thing from fine furniture. Objects like this dresser, settle beds, sugan chairs, milking stools, these are all examples of vernacular furniture, and they would have been built by essentially the peasant working class in their free time, not by some master carpenter with a magnificent workshop at his disposal. These folk would have used whatever scanty material was available to them to build the things they needed to improve their lives, and I think there's a massive amount of merit to that.
Alright, here we are now with the gist of her coming back together. When you're doing all the kind of small little repairs, it feels like you're spending a lot of time and not seeing a big result, but when you do something like this where you're hammering and nailing it all together, you see a lot of results very quickly, so it's very rewarding. This is definitely one of the more fun parts of this project.
With the dresser top in place, things were really starting to come together, but there was one big issue staring right at me, and that was the decorative mouldings on the edges and the fact that they had almost entirely turned to dust. And so it was back to the workbench with me to conjure up a replacement. So I bought this here pre-made moulding that looked close enough to the original that I thought I could easily modify it to match it exactly. But I had another problem. It was too thin at the bottom. So I planed it down to beyond the point where it got too thin, glue laminated on a thicker piece of pine, and then I could begin my work modifying it to match the originals. I cut a cross section of the best surviving piece of the original moulding I could find, used that to trace it onto my new piece, then I used my Stanley jack plane to round over the edges to match the original, and for the more complicated parts I used my Stanley number 55 combination plane to route out those little grooves in the middle. A quick bit of sanding and the new mouldings were ready to install. I think I got the profile fairly bang on, but again the original patinaed pieces surrounding it make them stand out, but like I said before, this is going to be all painted over anyway, so with any bit of luck, anyone looking at this down the line might not even know that this part was replaced. With the mouldings in place, the finish line was in sight, and the last big job I had to do was fit the backboards. Now you might remember from the start of the video, half the backboards were missing when I received this thing, and the half of them that were still intact were not worth saving. So with the collection deadline looming, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I certainly didn't fancy cutting dozens of meters of tongue and groove all by hand. I remembered at the start of the summer, I had been contacted by a carpenter who was doing renovation work on an old pub. The establishment had been told to remove their old wooden tongue and groove panelling as it had been deemed a fire hazard. At the very same time, I was building a traditional Irish boat known as a curragh, and I needed long strips of softwood to use for the hull. Happy out to be getting some free timber, I collected a few of the planks of pitch pine, machined them down to the right dimensions, and used them on the boat, for which they made a nice job. 6 months had passed since all of this occurred, so I knew by now there was a good chance that the remaining pieces of wood had been dumped. But if they were still there, I knew that they would be absolutely ideal for this job. So I rang up again, and sure enough, they hadn't budged since. So I took the remainder away back to the workshop with me, scraped off the century worth of paint. I wore a mask this time, seeing as it was more than likely lead paint here in this case. Then I brought them back to my parents' garage, drilled a bunch of pilot holes, and hammered down the backboards into their final positions. The back, of course, I left rough sawn, as is traditional. You hear stories of these things being built by one person as another holds a candle, so time would have been of the essence while building these things, and why waste hours planing smooth a surface that'll spend its entire life facing a wall, seen by nobody. The rough marks can also give us insight into whatever milling methods were in vogue during the time that these things were built. These planks here, having spent decades inside of a pub during a time when smoking indoors was legal, have the added benefit of having a nice layer of black tar on the back to add to their character. I think it's a fairly universal thing to delay the jobs you like the least until the very end. Well, remember earlier I was on about the tedious job of scraping the paint off and then reinstalling the decorative mouldings onto the cabinet doors? Well, the moment had finally arrived, so I had to get that job done before I could attach the new steel hinges and fit the cabinet doors back where they belong. Next I slotted the drawers back into position, and after that there was only one final job left to do, and that job of course was to reinstate the crown moulding. This in my mind completes the piece, giving it a sense of weight and balance, so it felt right to do that job last. Some wood glue, some pins, and a few taps of the hammer, and she was hanging. The piece on the left had gone missing, but I was able to make a replica using the same methods we used to recreate the decorative mouldings on the front. And with that final pin hammered into place, my work on this dresser had come to an end. Joan Lennon and her partner Andrea had travelled all the way down from County Cavan to collect this dresser. The dresser had been in Joan's family for a number of generations, and she was good enough to give us some information on it.
Okay, my name's Joan. I'm from Belturbet, and this dresser was in the home place. The first family members we know about that lived in that place were my great-great-grandparents, who seem to have appeared at some stage in the 1870s. We don't know when this dresser came into being, but the oldest family members that we know remember it as being old when they were young. So it was probably the main piece of furniture in the whole house. From what we think that was probably built in the house, because it was so big, you could only get out the door when the stairs were removed or the back was opened. My mother did a great job in the 90s. She stripped it all back, treated it for woodworm then, and painted it. And it gave it another wee lease of life. But unfortunately, the last few years, because we had significant problems with damp in the house because of basically a sand and cement render being put in places it shouldn't have been put, the place got very, very damp, and it was almost at the point where we probably wouldn't have been able to save it. So we were very, very lucky that Owen agreed to take it on and to give it a new lease of life for another wee while yet.
Hi, nice to meet you. You're bringing your baby home?
After bringing the ladies inside to give them tea and Christmas cake after their long journey, we made our way back outside, where my father helped us load the dresser into the back of their van. Not long after, the dresser was on her way back up to the cottage in Cavan, where she belongs. Joan was good enough to send me a video of the dresser after they had given it a lick of paint. I think they've done a wonderful job, and I really like their decision to leave some of that beautiful old wood grain exposed. The handsome old beauty sings once more, and I hope that she'll get to enjoy many more years as the centrepiece of their kitchen. Thanks for watching. Slán go fóill.